Hello and welcome. Battle Cry is back. I'm Gaurav Sawant. It's been 1 year of that battle at Galwan, that battle in eastern Ladakh where India gave China a bloody nose, where 20 braves of the Indian army made the supreme sacrifice of their lives, but they kept the honor of the Indian army and the country supreme and ensured that Chinese transgressions at Galwan failed. Let's tell you more about that epic battle at Galwan.
In the third week of April 2020, after their annual military exercises, pushed in troops along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. The Chinese army came up to Finger 4 on the north bank of Pangong Tso and occupied certain features near Gogra, hot springs, and came close to the Vainala at Galwan, trying to dominate the Durbuk Shok Daulat Beg Oldie strategic road. On June 6th, the Indian and the Chinese corps commanders decided a roadmap of mutual and verifiable troop withdrawal. Colonel Santosh Babu, commanding officer of 16th Battalion of the Bihar Regiment, was tasked to verify the withdrawal proceedings as per plan. Colonel Babu noticed that though the Chinese had withdrawn, they left behind one tent which could have been used as an observation post to monitor road movement. Despite repeated warnings, the tent was not taken down till sundown, which led to an altercation. The Chinese came armed with clubs, with barbed wires and nails, and attacked Colonel Babu and his team. Seeing the CO being attacked, the 16 Bihar Patrol Party and soldiers from 3 Punjab and Medium Artillery Regiment hit back. The Indian soldiers charged at the Chinese patrol and pushed them back, taking down the tent. The Chinese later released a video showing a young army captain fearlessly charging unarmed to push back the intruders in the Galwan River. Later in the night, a fresh group of Chinese commandos armed with iron clubs attacked the Indian patrol on a thin ledge, and there was a free-for-all. The ledge gave away, and a number of Indian and Chinese soldiers fell into the freezing Galwan River below. On June 17 morning, units in their area were asked to account for their personnel. By afternoon, lists were drawn out, and by evening it was clear that the fatalities were not 3 but 20, including the commanding officer on the Indian side. The Chinese conceded they too suffered casualties, but it was only in February 2021 they confirmed 4 fatalities, including the regiment commander, after a uproar in China over India honoring the Galwan Braves and China being mum about it. US intelligence agencies pegged Chinese fatalities around 35, but Russian wire agency TASS confirmed 45 Chinese soldiers had been killed in Galwan. China got a bloody nose at Galwan and pulled back from this friction point, insisting on creating a mutual buffer zone. Galwan was a lesson China won't forget in a hurry. Bureau Report, India Today.
In the Indian Army, the commanding officer is like the father of the battalion. And when Colonel Santosh Babu, commanding officer of the 16th Battalion of the Bihar Regiment, was right in front trying to get the Chinese to honor the commitment and move back beyond the line of actual control, the Chinese attacked him. As our brave soldiers saw the commanding officer fall, they charged with bare hands, taking on a numerically superior Chinese army at the line of actual control. And from either side, the Chinese were raining down stones and rocks. They had medieval age weapons with them. But it's the Indian soldier, raw courage, grit, determination, and that never say die spirit that, according to Russian agency TASS, the Chinese suffered at least 45 fatalities, and a lesson that they will not forget in a long time to come.
Raw courage caught on camera. A young army captain leads the charge in knee-deep, icy water of the Galwan River to push back Chinese army soldiers creeping forward on June 15th last year. Courage caught on Chinese cameras as the young Braveheart stares the enemy down. Inspired by this brave officer, Colonel Santosh Babu, commanding officer of the 16th Bihar Regiment, led from the front, he was tasked to construct an observation post at Galwan. The Chinese attacked the Indian army at the line of actual control. But despite being outnumbered, Chinese soldiers pelting stones from adjoining heights and attacking with sharp metal rods with spikes, Colonel Santosh Babu refused to be evacuated and led from the front. He was awarded the Mahavir Chakra posthumously.
It was not a local action by the PLA, it was a planned ambush. But the PLA was surprised, despite our troops being taken aback by this planned ambush, by the retaliation and response of Colonel Santosh Babu and his men. Those 20 martyrs, we salute them. And because of that, there is the cost they inflicted on the PLA was so heavy that PLA thereafter decided that this is not a good strategy, it's not good tactics.
Naib Subedar Nuduram Soren led his column bravely in the Galwan River clash and resisted the enemy's efforts to push back Indian soldiers. He fought to his last breath in icy cold waters and was awarded a Veer Chakra posthumously. Havildar K. Parani, the gunner, was part of the 16 Bihar patrol that was attacked by the Chinese troops. Despite being outnumbered, Havildar Parani led from the front and made the supreme sacrifice. He was awarded the Veer Chakra posthumously. Nayak Deepak Singh, the battlefield nursing assistant in the middle of the battle, continued to provide aid to injured soldiers. He was killed in action, saving the lives of his comrades in arms. He was awarded the Veer Chakra posthumously. Sepoy Gurtej Singh, who spotted the enemy build-up and alerted fellow troops about it, and rushed into the battle to save his brothers in arms. Despite being grievously injured, he continued to fight to his last breath, ensuring the Chinese soldiers were pushed back. He was awarded the Veer Chakra posthumously. Havildar Tejinder Singh, the gunner from the medium regiment, pushed into the heart of the battle to push back numerically superior adversaries and continued to fight till his last breath. His leadership in battle inspired his comrades to push back the Chinese. He was also awarded the Veer Chakra.
The valor exhibited by Colonel Babu and the brave men has proved that India cannot be taken for granted. That the Indian Army will retaliate should the Chinese attempt to change the LAC.
14 other braves who made the supreme sacrifice of their lives were awarded the Sena Medal for gallantry for resisting the Chinese attempts to push back Indian soldiers, establishing an observation post in Galwan. The country will never forget. Bureau Report, India Today.
On the night of 29th and 30th of August 2020, the Indian Army undertook quid pro quo operations and occupied the Kailash Hills overlooking China's Moldo garrison. The Chinese army was taken aback. Not in their wildest dreams had they thought this is what the Indian army could do. So, there were negotiations, and on either side of Pangong Tso, both armies have withdrawn. But whether it's Hot Spring or Gogra or even Depsang, the Chinese are still not withdrawing. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, in an exclusive interview to India Today, said at the level of the Ministry of External Affairs, efforts are on, but India is also strengthening our defenses along the LAC in Ladakh.
Tanks and troops pulled back from areas around the scenic Pangong Lake after 10 months of military hostilities between India and China. These are images from February. Signs of tensions being eased in eastern Ladakh as both sides agreed on a mutual disengagement. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh made the big announcement in Parliament, giving details of the agreed terms for the pullback in areas only around the Pangong Lake that had become the biggest and most immediate flashpoint.
चीन अपनी सेना की टुकड़ियों को नॉर्थ बैंक में फिंगर 8 के पूरब की दिशा की तरफ रखेगा और इसी तरह भारत भी अपनी सेना की टुकड़ियों को फिंगर 3 के पास अपने परमानेंट बेस धन सिंह थापा पोस्ट पर रखेगा। ये कदम आपसी समझौते के तहत बढ़ाए जाएंगे।
This was followed by 2 corps commander level talks in February and April, hoping that a roadmap for de-induction and de-escalation would be decided. Instead, it's a bigger deadlock in eastern Ladakh again after 4 months of the initial disengagement around Pangong. In the while that the corps commander level meetings have taken place, the big breakthrough of a resolution in other friction points like Gogra, Hot Springs and Depsang hasn't happened.
जो लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल पे जो सिचुएशन है वो एक स्टेलमेट है, वहाँ पर एक बराबरी चल रही है। पीएलए भी डिप्लॉयड है वहाँ पर, हम भी डिप्लॉयड हैं। गेम ऑफ पेशेंस है वहाँ पर, हमें सारा रखना पड़ेगा, टाइम लगेगा और टाइम हमारे पास है। हमारी बहुत अच्छी आर्मी है जो जिसको एक्सपर्टीज है हाई एल्टीट्यूड में, तो वहाँ पर हमको अपना सारा रख के उनसे नेगोशिएट करना पड़ेगा।
While there has been no further escalation, India's demand for a status quo restoration as of April 2020 remains a far cry.
बड़ा फिरोशियस एक रिटेलिएशन था, एक रिएक्शन था कल संतोष बाबू की टीम का। उसकी वजह से बहुत सारे गलवान जो होने थे, जो पीएलए ने प्लान कर रखे होंगे, वो नहीं हुए। उसकी वजह से 1 साल से वहाँ पर एक रिलेटिव पीस है, एक वहाँ पर इक्विलिब्रियम है, एक शांति है वहाँ पर, बल्कि फेस ऑफ्स हैं, सेंसिटिव एरियाज हैं, लेकिन कोई भी वायलेंस लेवल, कोई भी वहाँ पर वायलेंट एक्शन नहीं हुआ है।
As the Chinese dig in even after the initial disengagement in Pangong that happened in February, the Indian Army has prepared itself to grind it out. The Indian Army continues with its enhanced troop deployment of over 50,000 in Ladakh for the last 1 year, including the peak harsh winter when temperatures dipped to -40 degrees. This kind of deployment will continue for the foreseeable future. It could be months, it could be years. With Abhishek Bhalla.
A quick break, don't go anywhere. Lots more coming up on the first anniversary of Galwan and China's rapid infrastructure development in Xinjiang and in Tibet. Keep watching Battle Cry. China still hasn't been able to explain why its army that was undertaking an exercise in the Kunlun mountain area suddenly came down G219 and at least 2 divisions occupied territory in eastern Ladakh at the line of actual control. They've given multiple explanations at different fora, but none officially. China also did not concede that it had fatalities. Much later, under intense pressure, they did give posthumous bravery award to 4, including the regiment commander who was killed in action. But China also refuses to move back either from Gogra or Hot Spring or Depsang plains. And both India and China are strengthening their defenses on either side of the line of actual control. The situation remains tense and grim.
Soon after the ugly clash in Galwan, India was quick to tell the world about the valor of its men. There was no hiding the fact that 20 Indian Bravehearts, led by commanding officer Santosh Babu, had been killed in action. The Chinese, though, never acknowledged their deaths, even though several reports did the rounds of the heavy casualties on their side as well. It was only 8 months later, in February 2021, when China put the death toll to 4, as it announced gallantry honors for those part of the Galwan clash.
The losses suffered by the Chinese have been far too many. China has been trying to cover the death of their soldiers. But Galwan has shown and proved to the world that India can stand up to China.
All this while, the Chinese mind games have been at play even during the Corps Commander meet to resolve the issue. After the disengagement in Pangong, no headway has been made as the Chinese remain rigid in their discussions.
The Chinese want the border dispute to be settled on their terms and conditions, which is not acceptable to us. And hence, the border dispute will never be settled.
There has been a huge trust deficit between the two sides. Despite repeated attempts through a military dialogue over the last 1 year, a final resolution seems far away.
Definitely, we cannot trust China. We cannot trust anyone for that matter, especially China, and especially after the treachery at Galwan. So we will stand firm, we will stand absolutely correct and make sure that the Chinese do not do anything more than what they've already done and wait for the resolution.
To ensure peace, patrolling by both sides has been called off, but that doesn't mean they don't monitor each other's activities in these contested areas. While a buffer zone exists in Galwan and Pangong Lake, a clear-cut formula for other places is still not in place. Clandestine operations to ensure both sides are stuck to their terms of agreement continue to this day.
Even after 11 rounds of talks between top commanders of India and China, there is still no indication of restoration of status quo as of April 2020, as India has been insisting. And China has been extremely rigid with its stand on some of the other friction points, which is the main reason why a further de-induction and de-escalation seems a far cry. With camera person Waqar Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
Was China able to achieve its aim in 2020? Perhaps not, given the fact that Galwan operations gave China a massive setback and the quid pro quo operations on Kailash Hills. China is now rapidly developing infrastructure, not just in Tibet, but also in Xinjiang. After it got a bloody nose at Galwan and a year-long stalemate along the line of actual control, China is rapidly strengthening its military posture in Tibet and Xinjiang. China is building permanent accommodation, ammunition dumps, military hospitals, and additional roads. China is also making heliports and upgrading capabilities at existing airports, making more runways, aprons, taxiways, blast pens for their fighter aircraft, attack helicopters, and unmanned aerial vehicles. China is also working on creating additional surface-to-air missile bases along the LAC from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. The Chinese armed forces have also carried out a number of military and air exercises in Tibet, acclimatizing new soldiers to the high-altitude environment.
There is some development activity which has been ongoing in Tibet Autonomous Region of China. Well, every nation will continue to prepare for ensuring its security based on their strategic interests. And I don't think there should be much concern in that, because we on our side are also carrying out similar activity, and I wish to assure you that we are fully prepared for any eventuality that we may be faced with.
Take, for example, the Hotan Air Base. In the past 6 months, China has added additional infrastructure to accommodate not just the J-8 and J-11 fighter jets, but also advanced early warning aircraft and unmanned aerial vehicles. Satellite imagery shows construction of blast pens for fighter jets and ammunition shelters. Similarly, at the Nagari Gunsa Air Base, the runway has been extended to 4.5 kilometers. The Shigatse Air Base has not only got a new airstrip, but also additional hangars for unmanned aerial vehicles.
हाँ, सब तैयारी चल रही है. अगर वो एग्रेसिव हो सकते हैं तो हम भी होंगे. हमारी तैयारी पूरी है.
After 11 rounds of co-commander level talks and a written agreement to disengage from all friction points, China is only increasing its military presence in the region. Drones are being extensively deployed. Chinese troops from the 4th and the 6th Mechanized Infantry Division have been rotated and additional divisions brought in.
इंडियन आर्मी ने एक्स्ट्रा ट्रूप्स को डिप्लॉय किए हैं और एयरफोर्स और आर्मी ने मिलजुल कर अपनी पोजीशंस को फर्दर स्ट्रेंथन किया है और साथ ही साथ बड़ी कड़ी नजर रखी जा रही है चाइना की तमाम एक्टिविटी के माध्यम से सर्वेलेंस बड़े पैमाने पर इंप्रूव हो गई है.
Rudok, Gampa, Shigatse, Golmad areas are seeing new permanent defenses and military infrastructure coming up for permanent deployment of Chinese troops. In fact, in several border villages, locals have been moved away and Han Chinese families are being settled in border areas. Bureau Report, India Today. That is all we have time for on this special edition of Battle Cry. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.